Hi. Well, my name is Sally, and today I will be carrying out a few experiments. And I have, for an extended period of time, been doing what one might call foundational research on the phenomenon of dust bunnies, starting last year in Germany and continuing now in Denmark. And this work has included the gathering of qualitative as well as quantitative empirical material in the form of actual dust bunnies from different locations, research in general on the phenomenon of dust bunnies and their representation in culture and history, exchange of anecdotes and experience from colleagues and relatives, and as well a practical aspect in the form of experiments. The aim of this work has been to come closer to an understanding of the ontology of the dust bunny, its anatomy, including its physical limits and potentials, its socio-cultural status, including how it is represented in, for instance, language, and its role in relation to the human body and psyche. This is the dust bunny as an abject reminder of the ephemeral and fleeting character of life, which can either be accepted, ignored, or actively fought. And I will, as mentioned, be carrying out some experiments, of which some has been carried out earlier, but a few of them are actually brand new. So I am as excited as you today. And for this, I have brought 10 dust bunnies from my household in Germany. And this is, of course, to minimize the number of different factors involved, because per definition, all dust bunnies are different, meaning it can be a bit difficult to establish a vast and valid statistics. But now that they are at least all coming from the same private household, they are not as different as they would be if they were from different places. And I have also brought a few tools that I will need. And before I start, I just quickly want to say that I'm very aware of some of the challenges that come with this kind of scientific work. One thing is, of course, the ethical question related to science that is dealing with questions like nationality, identity, and the intimate spheres of individuals. Dealing with that takes some responsibility. But also in relation to scientific ideals like representation, validity, and what we in Denmark would call sund skepsis, some kind of critical attitude and reflection. Those questions also require some responsibility and attention. Yes, and since the already existing science or research in the field is unfortunately quite limited, it has turned out to be difficult to make this vast statistics, or at least it's a piece of work that takes some time and repetition. However, I don't see this as a reason for stopping or doubting the status of these experiments. I would rather like to see it as an opportunity to consider it a process which is more about continuous expansion of the notion of the dust bunny and a number of micro experiences and realizations rather than a search for an absolute truth on the phenomenon. And since we are not running out of dust bunnies anytime soon, I am continuing the studies without hesitating. And now it says in my paper, do the experiments. And I'm going to do 10 experiments, and the experiments are called experiment number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And the first experiment, number 1, is to put a dust bunny in water. And the aim of this experiment is to discover how the dust bunny reacts when being exposed to extreme moisture. And due to the practical circumstances, I will not be taking notes and making conclusions as we proceed. I will rather just pretty quickly carry out the experiments and then later use this documentation and whatever is left of the dust bunnies as the starting point for making notes and so on. So you are, of course, welcome to, after the experiments and this presentation, come up to the table and see the results yourself. Experiment number 2, to cut a dust bunny in two, and the aim to discover what this does to the perception of the dust bunny as one entity. This is the copy I will use, and I will of course be using a scissor. I guess you can all see it all right. Experiment number 3. Experiment number 3 is one that has been done before, and it is about freezing a dust bunny down. So I have, in this context, been permitted to have this in a freezer in relatively close relation to godsbanen. And it has been in the freezer overnight. Now it has been already up for a few hours. And the aim of this experiment was, of course, to see how the dust bunny would react to the exposure of extreme low temperature. Because without going too much into detail, I can say that due to the low density of dust bunnies and the character of the basic components, they are usually not able to contain much water. So my thesis was that it would not be very clear after this experiment that it had been in the freezer. And carrying out the experiment the first time as well as this time has confirmed that theory. The dust bunny did not change its structure or stiffness at all, actually, confirming that it does not contain much water. And it's not even cold anymore, of course, due to the same reason. Experiment number 4. This one is being carried out for the first time. To let 2 dust bunnies merge, and the aim to discover what it does to the perception of dust bunnies as separate entities. For this, I need 2 dust bunnies, obviously. And I have been thinking about exactly how to intervene in this process, how to facilitate it, because one could do it in several different ways. But what I will do is actually just, maybe it's easier to see like this. They look like this, from the same household. And what I will do is just to take one of them into the back of the other one, using this. It's already falling apart, meaning I have to deal with that. Actually, I think it will be easier for you to follow along if I as well take this one out and let the merging start outside of the bag. I'm now, I don't want to get it mixed up. This is my drinking water. I will now actually just place this one on top of the other one. And again, without going too much into details, due to things like common chaos theory, for instance, they should actually already be quite merged without much further manipulation. Yeah, how can I prove it without forcing it? So the question is now, is this 1 or 2 dust bunnies? Just placing it here. That was number 4. Experiment number 5. To let a dust bunny fall to the ground from a certain height. Aim to discover what it does to the dust bunny in terms of gravity. And this one has been carried out before in a very different context. I have been earlier on dropping or letting go of a dust bunny from a balcony outdoor on the 4th floor. And now that we are indoor and not affected by wind, for instance, things will probably turn out different. And can I go up here, or will that affect the... Okay, I'll just go up here then. Thanks. And I'm usually I would put a timer on it, but I think maybe I'll carry the experiment out again later with a timer. For now, it's more the demonstration potential. This one has even got feathers in it, but that's not intended. So, yeah, I'll just as high as I can. Yes. Yes, when I did it from the balcony, obviously it got carried away by the wind super fast, and I even think it ended up on the balcony belonging to the people living on 5th floor. But of course that's not going to happen when you do it inside. Experiment number 6, to swap 2 dust bunnies. For that one, I have been collecting 2 dust bunnies from different places. These are not from a private household, because one thing I realized early in the process of this work is that dust bunnies are not, as I thought, mainly appearing in private households, but as well appearing out in public space, especially around subway stations and in supermarkets, because this is where people tend to be when they are not at home. And this one is from the train station at Roskilde, a Danish city, pretty big city. And this one is not from public space, but also not from a private household. This one is from the Workers' Museum in Copenhagen. And I thought it would be more interesting to actually see the dust bunnies than to just see photo documentation of them already having been swapped. So, in that sense, the experiment is not done yet. What I will do is that I will go back to Sjælland after this event and do the swapping. So this will be placed at Roskilde Central Station, and this will be placed at the Workers' Museum. And you can clearly see, I mean, yeah, they're super different because of all the factors that are involved, and you can hear more about these factors if you are interested. There are plenty of material generated on that by me. Experiment number 7. To place a dust bunny in a room with relatively many people. And you can see the bag is empty. It's because the dust bunny is already out in the room. And I don't know if you have noticed. Maybe you will now that you know it's there. I think I will pick it up later if I can find it. It might already have moved quite far away, who knows. But I will go out and search after this performance. Experiment number 8. To expose a dust bunny for pressure. You see this one is empty too. That's because the dust bunny is under this brick. And it has been there for maybe 1 hour, so it's not that long. But let's see. Wow. It's super flat actually. And there's even some moist. Maybe that's because I think this is a very fresh brick you found. I think it contains water. It's all wet. Or maybe it was lying out in the moist of the night. I don't know if you can see it, but it's pretty flat now. Yeah, and perfectly round as well, which is also kind of curious. I'll put it here. Experiment number 9. And this one is also new. and I'm a bit excited about it. To create a dust bunny artificially. Aim to see whether this is possible. Now, in most dust bunnies, a selection of the same common basic components are found, and I have now found the 10 most common components and put them all in separate bags. And they are hair, withered leaves, a dead insect. This one is it's just what I could find. This one is how is it called in English? It's one of these insects that look like a big mosquito. Maybe it even is. I have written stankelben. It's like the spider mosquito. Fur from a cat, in this case. And dust, actual dust, which is mainly DNA from humans, dead skin, and similar objects, microscopic things. Tobacco, it's arguable whether this is a basic component. Of course, it is only in households or places where people smoke, but since a lot of people smoke, it is on the top 10 list of basic components. Crumbs, those can as well look in many different ways. These are from a toaster, so yeah, mainly from bread and a few seeds. Textile/thread. I think this is wool from a carpet, but it could as well be from clothing or a pillow. And small feathers. I don't know what they're called in English, but in Danish they're called dun. From the inside of a pillow, for instance. And spider web, because often dust bunnies are created in corners and different architectonic gaps, and that's also where spiders often make their webs, meaning that the webs really most of the time have got dust in them as well. And obviously the stickiness of the web is a great binder for making coherence. Yeah, this is number 10. I'm done already. And what I will do is that I will put all these different ingredients into one bag. And I'll actually just put them into the first one with the hairs. And this rubber band for looking good is not part of it, but it was actually impossible to take the web away without this vehicle. But I will of course try and take it off now. Feathers. Maybe it might be a bit hard to see, but as I said before, you're very welcome to come closer when I'm done. And due to all these various processes of friction and of chaos and as well static electricity, and so on. My thesis is honestly that it will not be hard for these different ingredients to merge into being a dust bunny, even though it has been through a very manipulative process rather than a natural run. But the question would, of course, also be then on a more metaphysical or poetic level, even whether the fact that it looks like a normal dust bunny is enough to say that it is a normal dust bunny when it has not been growing on its own. Or these I can just pour actually. And it might be that it's also affected by the static electricity that is in the vacuum of the plastic bag. But I'm working on finding a way to minimize the impact of that factor. It's just really nice to have the dust bunnies in the plastic bags because they are transparent and then you can see what is going on. But as you can see down here, I also like to carry them around in the cardboard boxes for the eggs. That's also a nice way to keep them separate. Oh, and this is the dust. This might be hard to get out. Yeah, I think I need this. And this dust was just lying around on a shelf, and I actually just put on a glove and took it off with my finger. It looks like this now. Now I'm going for the fur. And if you have the cat's allergy, you should not come too close to this. I'll take the insect in the end out of respect. Withered leaves, those can be poured probably. I should almost have brought a bigger bag actually. Let's keep it tidy. Actually, there are really often insects or fragments of insects in dust bunnies. One of my friends even once found one that we first thought was a little chunk of weed, but when he took a picture with his phone and the blitz, we could see that it was a dead grasshopper tangled up in dust. A very beautiful one. And that is also something that I gladly receive. Donations in forms of documentation. Now they're all down here. And I will just proceed as if I was making a cocktail. And let's see if it stands the coherence test. Maybe, yeah, I should actually have brought a longer of this, but they're usually small, the eyebrow tools. A bit fragments left at the bottom, the heavier ones. The seeds are obviously not easy to merge with the other components, but these ones go together quite well. I'll just put it here. And now, the last one, experiment number 10. This one has as well been done before under very different circumstances. In Hamburg, where I used to live, I went outside with a similarly big dust bunny and put it on a stone, which we happen to have here today as well. And due to the context back then, being outdoor, affected by wind and outdoor temperature, the result was something, and the result will probably be different now. Because experiment number 10 is to put fire to a dust bunny. And when I did it the last time, there was, amongst other things, some hairs from the head of a broom made out of nylon, which is obviously very flammable. So that dust bunny burned relatively good. This one does not have that component in it. This one has the more basic indoor things, plus some withered leaves. So let's see if it is flammable at all. Yeah, I don't want to shadow too much. Maybe I'll go down here. Oh, it smells actually. Yeah. And as you can see, of course, the leaves were more flammable. And the hairs, which are always good for coherence and binding the things together, is flammable too. But actually the dust particles, the smaller ones, seem to be almost fireproof. They can only be lit when they are in immediate contact with the more flammable components. So I don't know, potentially, if you ever find yourself in a situation with fire and you have a vacuum cleaner close to you, I would actually say that emptying the content of the vacuum cleaners, the back, the stomach of it, on the fire would probably turn it out. That was the experiments for today. And as I said, the results are what you see here, and you're welcome to come closer before I pack it down to leave the space for the next artist. And I will be using the documentation and my own memory-based experience for making some notes and conclusions, adding it to the archive and the research, and then in the future continue carrying out more of these experiments. And as I also said, you are of course very welcome to contact me if you have interest in further references or material in relation to this phenomenon. You can do it today or you can do it online later on. And I still receive donations of dust bunnies if you find one, if you even make one yourself, or if someone give one to you. But that was it.